vlog number 1 of the development of Boson. So here I have an alias, and I'm going to open that up. So here's the title screen. Right now, the only thing it has is a static picture and a press enter thing flashing. If you don't do anything, after the music stops, it'll wait a few seconds and then it'll fade to black and it'll restart the title sequence. If you press enter, it'll take you to a test level, which is temporary. And this is just a physics test engine, or physics engine test level. So, so far you can do multiple things. You can move left and right, and your speed will gradually increase as you continue to move. You can fall off of platforms. And right now I'm using kind of like I added some code so that if I fell off the edge of a platform like that, you can only double jump once. So you get a double jump move in addition to a normal jump. So in order to prevent this from happening and me soft locking the entire thing, I made it so that if I click anywhere on the screen with my mouse, the player will just move to that position. And so yeah, you can jump and then you can double jump while you're in midair. However, you can only do that once. You can only get one double jump, and after that you have to wait until you're on the ground. You also have a dive move, which so far doesn't do anything. It just makes the player flash, as you can see right now. And I'll add more on that in a bit. The physics is pretty consistent. Obviously, there's that kind of glitchy effect where if you run into a wall and you continue to hold the direction, like right now I'm holding right and I'm running into the wall. Once you reach full speed in that direction, if you want to go in the other direction and move away from the wall, it will take some time for your position to change. And there's also that kind of glitchy effect if you move too much into the wall, which can sometimes happen. I'm not sure what conditions it happens in specifically. And there's also, number 2, if you want to jump away from the wall, you will gain an insane amount of speed really quickly. So instead of losing your momentum when you run into a wall, you'll just hold on to it. So when you jump, that momentum will just automatically take effect and you'll snap almost like snap to the next surface is what it kind of feels like. Another big issue is that every single object, every tile with collision can be clipped through. So like, see right now, I'm just clipping through the corner of this block. You can do this with every single block that has collision. Every one, you can clip through it. Up until a certain point. You can't clip all the way through. You'll never be able to clip so far into the block that you'll fall completely through the floor or the tile or whatever. But you can always clip through the very corner. So as long as you're the center of the player, the center would be in the very center of that rectangle. As long as that is not inside the as long as that center point isn't in a specific spot, then you will be able to clip through it. But once you clip it far enough into the block, then the center will be in the correct position to push you out of the wall. A result of this is that you can do infinite double jumps. So if you clip through a corner of a ceiling, so if you clip through the corner of a block and there's a ceiling that you clip into, if you jump while you're touching the ceiling, then you can perform another double jump before you touch the ground. So like this. No, I failed at that time. Okay, let's see. Like that. So as you can see there, I did a double jump, but I clipped through the ceiling, and what that did is it let me do another double jump. And the reason that happens is because basically the way I set up the game to calculate or like determine whether or not you can do jumps is you have a jump counter. It's by default set to 0, and every time you jump, it increments by 1. So if your jump counter is less than 2, then the game will make you jump, and it will increment your jump counter. So after you jump twice, the counter will be at 2, and then you have to wait for it to be changed to 0. And that part is not the problem. The problem is the conditions in which your jump counter is set to 0. So basically, I'll be referring to like this kind of surface at the top of a block as a floor, and this kind of surface at the bottom of a block as a ceiling. And okay, so so there's horizontal collision, which is when you run into an object horizontally, and there's vertical collision. So how it works is your jump counter isn't just set to 0 when you hit a floor. It's not when you hit a floor. Your jump counter will be set to 0 if you hit a floor or a ceiling. So if you hit a floor or a ceiling, you'll be able to jump again. But the reason that you can't just jump into this ceiling and infinitely keep jumping, because as you can see, I keep falling down. I can't infinitely jump. The reason is because I set the I made the game so that you have to be moving downwards you have to be moving downwards while you collide with a floor or a ceiling. And normally that would work because that would work fine, because if you hit a ceiling, you have to be moving upwards. You can't hit a ceiling from above because the ceiling is always going to be above you. And when you're actually touching the ceiling, your vertical velocity will be 0 because you're not moving upwards. But because we can clip through the corner of blocks, we can actually hit the ceiling while we're moving downwards. And that causes our jump counter to be set to 0, allowing us to double jump again. And that can be easily fixed by just fixing the collision with the block. Or I could kind of find some way to test whether or not we're hitting a floor or a ceiling. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So I will obviously add more to these logs and make more. But for now, that will be all. This is log number 2 of the development of Boson. I've actually made a very large number of significant changes. Actually, significant would be an understatement. All of these are like crucial game-changing changes. No pun intended there. So first things first, I actually changed the entire game to being an RPG instead of a platformer because I felt like it would be simpler to code, because the physics engine of an RPG is always much simpler. Obviously, that does add a few more difficult things to implement, like being able to implement cutscenes, and talking to other NPCs and all that. But I'm getting there, slowly but surely. I'm getting there, and so here's what I have so far. The title screen is the same. Just says Boson. You press enter to continue. I did change the text of that because it was looking a bit ugly, just a little bit. And as you can see, I've added some graphics for the player, some decent graphics. And I think this will be the final sprite, or the final sprite set for Magnum, which is the main character's name, by the way. I don't know if I've mentioned that. Because I'm pretty happy with this. I think it looks pretty good, so yeah, you can move around. The main keys you're going to be using are Z, X, C, and V, so your 4 fingers rest nicely on those keys, so it feels comfortable. That's what I was going for. And one other thing I have going so far is you can talk to NPCs. So if you go right next to an NPC and you press V, you can talk to them. And as you can see, the text box appears at the bottom of the screen, and you can go ahead and talk. So, a few features, basic features that are necessary, but I'm still going to show them off. Number one, if you try and move while you're talking to an NPC, you won't be able to. I'm pressing all of the directional keys right now. Nothing is happening. Number two, the text gradually it advances letter by letter, and you press V to advance to the next phrase. It goes phrase by phrase. So far, I'm hard coding each phrase because I don't have an algorithm to detect, like, you know, how many characters are in the phrase. And if it's too many, obviously the text is going to go off the side of the text box. And I don't really have any code set up to detect whether or not it's too long of a chunk of text and to send it to the next line. So I'm just manually doing that when I write the text by inserting some characters that will tell the game that you need to move to the next chunk of text for this. I also just clicked, I have this debug feature, I didn't take it out, where if I click on any portion of the screen, it will kind of teleport the player there. So yeah, I didn't remove that because I'm still going to be needing it for debug purposes. But also there's a little sound effect. It's a clicking sound effect for every letter that it you know, types out. It will play that clicking noise. I don't know if you can hear it. I'll just turn up the volume a bit. So yeah, anyways, the message is saying, I shouldn't be saying this. Why? Well, the default message is this for NPCs like me. The dev's going to be mad at me now. Yeah, I'm not going to be mad at this NPC because it's just a blue box. But it's just a little funny chunk of text I thought would be interesting to put in the game for, you know, if when I actually release the game, if people somehow manage to talk to an NPC who doesn't have any text, this is the default text. So, or if I just forget to give an NPC text, it's going to say this. So yeah, this is supposed to be another NPC. The difference between these two is this NPC I made manually. Like I created this NPC via bear code. And this NPC I actually created a node in the scene editor, and then I once again created an NPC from code. But I used that other node in the scene editor to use that node's position as the NPC's position. However, the problem with that is that it doesn't have any dialogue. You can't talk to it. I'm trying to talk to it right now. I'm pressing V, and I can't talk to this NPC. I actually did give it some dialogue, but it's not saying anything for whatever reason. I'm not sure why that's happening, but yeah, it's a problem. That's what I'm gonna try and figure out next time I work on it, which is probably gonna be very soon, actually. So yeah, that's my main task right now. My next goal is to find a method of creating NPCs, like a short, easy method of creating NPCs, because there are going to be a lot of NPCs, throughout the game, and if I had to hard code, manually type out every NPC, where they are, what they say. I mean, I'm obviously going to have to manually type out what each NPC says, but if I have to, manually go and type in the coordinates of each NPC and figure out, where they should be positioned in the level, that would take, a lot of trial and error. And especially considering that Xcode doesn't have some kind of built-in quick test feature to like run your app and see how it looks, since you have to like run the application every single time you want to see what it looks like, that would make it even harder. So I'm hoping I can find a simpler method of putting these NPCs in. But if I can't do that, I'm just going to have to do it the hard way and find the coordinates of where I want them manually and then insert them and all that. But for now, that will be all. That's all I have to say. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for more logs. Hello, welcome to the third log of the development of Boson. I'm actually really excited to bring you this log because I've made so much progress, and I've made really big improvements, and I've come a long way since the last log. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to run it from Xcode here instead of using the alias, just to demonstrate that, because the previous 2 logs I've been booting it up from this little alias here. So the title screen, first off, the title screen has a new feature. If you press enter, oh, well, I need to focus the window. If you press enter, then you can select which mode you want to play, tutorial, normal, or easy. And tutorial is like, obviously, I put those little the subtitles to explain what each mode is like. And I obviously updated all of the music. It sounds much more high quality because I used different instruments that are much... They're not computer-generated instruments. They're sampled instruments. So, yeah, that's why it sounds a lot better. At least in my opinion. Anyways, the tutorial mode is, like, obviously the first time you play, it'll actually take you to a different area than you would normally be. With normal and easy, you'd start off in the first level, but in tutorial, you start off in the tutorial level. So far, I haven't really implemented any of that, and you go to the same level no matter what mode you pick. But yeah, so normal mode is, if you've played before, that's just the standard way of playing. It's just, you know, playing through the game like normal. The difference is, if you're playing tutorial mode, then you'll have all of this, like, people will try and tell you how to do things and explain things to you. And what I've seen is, in a lot of video games, they have, like, the beginning of the game is, like, entirely tutorial almost, and it's really annoying for people who are coming back to the game and just want to play through it now that they know all the rules of the game. So that's why I made tutorial a separate mode than these other 2. Easy mode is basically like, if you want to make the game a joke and you just want to become, like, completely unstoppable, just plow through everything without even having to try to play easy. It's kind of just like a joke, but I still want to keep it in there. So anyways, let's go in. Here's the tutorial music. As you can see, I actually made rooms. I gave sprites to the objects. You can just listen to the music for a bit. So yeah, that's the, there's background music. One thing I'm really excited to show you is, obviously, the graphics. There's actually, the room is fully rendered, and there's walls. Obviously, I'm just gonna demonstrate that I can't just walk out of the room, because that used to be a problem earlier. For the walls, I'm just using a very primitive solution. And I'm just putting black sprites across the sides of the floor sprite. So yeah, there aren't actual walls, they're just black sprites. And the music doesn't loop properly either. But yeah, I'm gonna try and figure that out. So, if you walk up to an NPC and you press V, you can interact with it. And they'll all say different things. They even have different names and titles. So this one says, move around with the arrow keys, interact with objects. And I put in a function that tests, or it checks whether or not what they're saying is too long to fit in the text box. And if it's too long, it puts in this arrow to indicate that there's more text. And then it puts the rest of the line in the next chunk of text. And then I also use the same separators to indicate if I want to put everything on a new line, regardless of how long the line is, then I can just use that character and do that as well. And also, I haven't really implemented yet, but actually let me just show you the last signs, what it says. Where are you? Good question. This is the abandoned sector. That didn't help you much, huh? Maybe you could talk to that guard over there for help. So yeah, I didn't implement it yet, but some NPCs can give you items. So for example, I'll talk to this guard over here. He's gonna give me an item. So this guy's name is Billy. Hey there, you seem lost. I may be a guard for this place, but I only did that to protect my family from the chaos this place brings to people who resist. Hey, let me help you out. Someone asked me to hold on to this for them. I can just say I dropped it somewhere. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Take it. So, I'm putting, when people give you items or when text is just informing you about the game and no one in particular is actually saying it, I put it in parentheses. So here it's saying, like, you don't know what you got, so you ask Billy what he gave you. That's not what Billy is saying. That's just what the game is informing you. Like, the game is telling you what's happening. And then, oh, that's one of the blasters that comes with the mecha suits they wear. Pretty cool, right? If you get into any trouble with the guards, hopefully this will help you out. I'm rooting for you. And then, yeah, obviously you can travel through the rooms. I don't intend for this to be a kind of RPG where, you know, when you go to a different room, just everything fades out and then it loads a new room. I want it to be continuous for most of the time. So yeah, there's no, like, walking out of the room and then the screen fading to black and then fading into the other room. It's all connected directly. So here's the next room. In this room, I intend to put some enemies here for you to fight. As kind of like learning how to fight and getting into that. But yeah, there's this guy, Joe. If you want to get out of this place and get some more information about where you are and all that, you're gonna have to show us you're worth our time. I've stationed my men throughout the hallways. You have to fight them before you can pass. Good luck. So yeah, this is, like I said, where I wanted to put in some enemies. I'm working on that right now, but I haven't created the battle system yet. So that's my next course of action. And this guy, Bob, why are you here? What could you possibly have to gain by walking into this tiny little corner here? Well, I guess since you found your way here, take this. And then here's another example of an NPC giving you an item. He gives you an OP badge. Pretty neat, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't actually make you overpowered. It's just a neat little thing I found. Enjoy. And then, again, an example of how when the game is trying to, like, tell you or informing you of what's happening, it's in parentheses. So, though the badge is just a metal circle, it seems to fill you with power and energy. And no, I never considered making it say, it seems to fill you with determination. Though that would be kind of funny, I guess. But, oh yeah, and, down here, the reason this is all black and you can just walk off the room, is because I didn't add the new rooms. Simple as that. I didn't get that far. And if you do manage to leave in the final game with some kind of glitch, because you won't be able to do it normally, you'll be able to, like, you'll see this is the kind of wall sprite I was talking about. It's completely black, so you can't tell there's a wall here. But there's like a rectangle here that's completely black, and that's what's preventing you from, you know, getting out of the map. The only reason I was able to, you know, leave the normal map area that's allowed, why I was able to get out of bounds, was because I didn't finish the rest of the room. So the entire lower end of the room has, the lower edge of the room doesn't have any walls, so you can just leave and do whatever the hell you want. So yeah, that's basically all. Yeah, I'm not talking very coherently. I'm sorry about that. I'm just excited to show all this off. Yeah, but that's all I have to say and to show you. If you look at the other log, I'm sure I made a lot of progress from then. Back then, I think I just had like a black void, no walls, nothing. The NPC was just a blue square. One of them didn't even work, I think, in the last log. You couldn't even talk to one of them. So yeah, I think that's a really, really big improvement, and that makes me really happy that I'm going somewhere. So yeah, I don't want to ramble too much, which I've already done a lot of rambling during this log. So hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully you didn't have to skip over large portions of it. But you probably did. Anyways, that will be all for this time. Stay tuned for more logs in the future. Hello, I'm Rohan. Welcome to the 4th log of the oh god, I gotta restart. Hello, I'm Rohan. Welcome to the 4th log of the development of Boson. I felt the need to make another log because I was not making logs that much. And the last log I made was in November. And when I looked at that log, oh my gosh, I could not believe how much has changed since then. And I really should have been making logs more frequently. But what with winter and Christmas and, you know, just the holidays, I kind of lost track of the logs. But I want to show you what all has changed about Boson, and there is a lot that's different. It's gone through a complete overhaul, and I think you'll find that there's a huge, huge change, just like I did. So, first of all, what you'll notice is the text, the font is a completely different font, which I feel is more appropriate since it's a more retro-style game in terms of at least graphics. So I gave it a more retro style font. And another thing you'll notice is if we wait for the music to fade out for the title screen, there's actually a new track on the title screen that plays if you once the main theme ends. This one will start playing, and this one is on the loop, and it's meant to be looped, so it'll loop smoothly and it won't just be the same thing repeating over and over again. At least it's not like the main theme, which isn't meant to be repeated. It's just meant to be played once and then stopped. So this is a filler until you select an option. But anyways, I'm not going to dabble here too long. If you want to listen to this, it's on my YouTube channel, Centercore. So yeah, you can go check that out. So as you can see, everything right off the bat is completely different. First of all, Magnum, or your main character, I gave him completely new sprites. So all of his animations are different. I believe that these sprites are, I put a lot more effort into them. The ones from last log were really just almost placeholders. They weren't very detailed or well designed. So these ones are the new sprites and animations. Another thing you'll notice, all of the characters, or the NPCs I should say, have shadows to make it feel more like a 3D environment rather than just a flat top-down perspective. Well, here is the one of the biggest changes is the graphics. So earlier, like I said, I didn't really have a reliable way to make to position the NPCs and the walls and the barriers. Earlier, I was just using black rectangles across the sides of the rooms to block off the the black abyss and the void, to prevent players from getting out of the play area. I actually found a way to a more reliable way to create maps in which I can really just go and I can select. So I have a tile for the wall, I have a tile for the ceiling, all that, or not the ceiling, but all these boundaries of the floor. I have tiles for all these. So what I can do is I can just go grab whichever one I want and I can just lay it out. I can just paint it. I can click on the screen and I can drag my mouse around, and it's almost like a drawing tool where it'll just draw on all of the tiles for me, which is why everything looks a lot more polished. Obviously, also the textures went through a major overhaul. Earlier, it was just a gray rectangle, the ground, with no real texture, and there wasn't really much detail to anything. So now, another big change. Let's see what happens when I talk to someone. As you can see, this is like a huge change. This probably took me the longest to finalize. But so earlier I had to manually put in the dialogue, but the problem with the dialogue was when I wrote the dialogue into the code, I would have to manually separate out the different lines because I didn't have any algorithm to detect whether or not the text is going off the side of the text box, which would be bad. We want it all to be in this text box. So I had to manually insert characters to tell the game to move to the next line. Now I don't have to do that anymore. It will automatically move to the next line once the character limit is reached. Another thing that's really obvious is the texture. The text box is no longer just a rectangle. It's actually a pretty detailed texture. I modeled this after, I'm not sure where I saw it, but I modeled it after a retro game I've seen. Now there's a flashing cursor that indicates that the line is completed and that you should continue the text. And the sound effect changed, which is actually, I just implemented that today because I felt like the other sound effect was quite annoying. And I think this one is a lot easier to listen to, especially that since you're going to talk to NPCs a lot throughout the course of the game. So that's about it with the text box. So I made the signs smaller. They used to be really big, and I think they're just better smaller. There's still a big one closer to the bottom of the map. But I'm actually really happy with the textures I used because what I have set up, it makes it feel much more 3D and dynamic as a world to see it like this with the textures. And one of the ways I did that was for the front, or not the front, rather the rear of the walls. This section you're looking at here, this is actually a separate texture than the rest of the walls. Now these are all walls. If you run into the side of one of these darker looking walls, it'll still be a wall. But I added another texture for the back end, the end that's facing the camera, to make it look more 3D. And I think that really goes a long way to adding to that 3D effect and really making it feel like you're looking into the room from above, which I'm actually really happy with. So yeah. A lot of other things are different because I obviously changed the layout of everything. All of these NPCs say the same thing. Almost. Some of them are tweaked. Like all of the NPCs you saw earlier are about the same. There's really not that many changes. So I'll just show you them right now. So yeah, I have this debug feature. I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier. I probably did. but I can click anywhere on the screen to automatically teleport the character there, which is just for debug. I'm going to take it out in the final game. Oh yeah, this is not one of the ones that I had earlier. So, yes, one of the other characters, this guy's Bob, and all this text is the same as how it was in the one I showed you, the beta, I guess. This is still a beta of the game, but the earlier version, and a lot has changed. By the way, this is the large sign I was talking about. I didn't scale it down yet, which I'll be getting to pretty soon. It's a very minor change that I need to do. These 3 guards are lined up in a way that you can't pass them without having to fight one of them. And which brings us to the next thing that changed, which is the battle. So, I was facing a dilemma earlier. And you know what, come to think of it, I don't even know if I had a battle system. I don't even know if I had anything to trigger a battle. But, actually, you know what, let me restart the scene. That's another one of the debug features I have. It restarts the entire area from the beginning. So, that's if I need to get out of a soft lock. So if you talk to this guy, he'll tell you that people that look kind of red will fight you as soon as you get close to them. So yeah, that's a way I have of indicating who will fight you and who is an enemy. So when you walk up to them, they'll immediately, like, I didn't press any buttons, they'll immediately talk to you. So this guy, I'm pretty sure I had this guy, Joe. I'm fairly sure I had him in the earlier version I showed you in log 3. And he said more or less the same thing. So if you want to get out of this place and figure out where you are, you're going to have to prove yourself worthy. How do you do that? Well, start by fighting me. So his dialogue has changed, but from what I remember, he said more or less the same thing, or at least the same message as what he's saying right now, which is basically, if you want to get more information, you have to fight some guards. So right off the bat, you can tell that it's different. You have a little animation, so let me actually go back and play that again. I use my debug feature to restart the scene. So it moves kind of fast, but I'm hoping you can keep up. So what happens is the main area fades out, and Magnum flashes for a bit, and then he goes off screen. After that, I'm going to code in a menu to show up, which is going to be your battle menu, and that battle menu is where everything will happen. It's what I'm currently working on, but it's going to take a lot of work to implement the battle system, so that's going to take a while. But yeah, so far, that's what I have. I'm thinking if there's anything else that's new that I have to show you, but I'm not sure. It's been a while since the last log, and while I watched the log right before I made this one, I don't remember every change because there's just so much. Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes was that I came up with a way to... I basically came up with a map editor. I made a map creator, and I didn't necessarily make it from scratch. I kind of used what was already there, like the tools I had, and I kind of edited them to make like this like map creator, where I can just easily paint my maps on and just kind of draw all of the walls and the floor and the layout of everything in the rooms, and that's really, really helpful. So I think it's great that I was able to do that. That's probably one of the biggest changes since last log. So yeah, for now that will be all, and stay tuned for some more logs.